Hi guys, Jacob here. Hope you're having a fantastic day and welcome to the channel. Today we're going to be talking about shooting real estate, both photography and videography. And there's a lot of different ways on how you can shoot real estate, but I'm going to show you my workflow and how I tackle it. And I do get really good results, so maybe you can take something away from this. And I don't want to waste any more of your time, so let's just get into it. So in talking about shooting a real estate video and photos, I'm going to break it down into three sections: the equipment that I use and how to shoot and the settings that I use, and then also how to deal with the files in post and how to edit the video. Okay, talking about equipment, the camera is the most important. One of the things that you do need to do is shoot in 60 frames a second. So later on in post, you can slow down the footage and make it look buttery smooth. And if you're shooting in HD 60 frames, there's a lot more cameras that can do that frame rate and resolution. But if your requirements are 4K 60, then the cameras become more expensive. I'm using one of the better priced 4K 60 cameras. It's the Sony FX30. And that's why I've purchased this one. It is well priced for the features that it has. And it's not a full frame. It is an APS-C camera. So some people would rather use a full frame, but I feel that the FX30 does a fantastic job with an APS-C sensor. One of the other things that you're going to need is a wide angle lens. So if you are on APS-C, you're going to need about a 10 mil or an 11 mil. If you're on full frame, you need 16 mil or less. That's really important so you can capture the full width of the room. I also use a gimbal. I'd suggest this for video. Any modern gimbal will work. It just helps you steady the shot. I use the Weebill S, and it's a fantastic gimbal because it's really powerful. It can take a full-size camera, and it's very small, compact. The arms lock, and it's easy to carry around. For taking photos, you're definitely going to need a tripod. I have one from Peak Design. It's a carbon fiber tripod that folds down really small. And I do have some comments around gear when it comes to the weight and the size. That's one of the reasons why I use an APS-C camera, because usually the camera bodies are smaller and lighter, and definitely the lenses are lighter and smaller, and it just allows you to get everything in your backpack. Also, my tripod, it's carbon fiber, it's really compact, it fits in my backpack as well, and pretty much everything that I shoot with just stuffs into one small backpack, and it just goes on my back. And my gimbal, it just folds up and it's just easy to carry around, or I can just clip it to one of my straps on my backpack. And if you're running around and doing a lot of photo shoots, after a while, you'll really appreciate light and compact gear. So there's a couple filters that I'd like to talk about that can attach to the front of your lens, which help out a lot in real estate. Take, for example, a day like today. We have a lot of sunlight coming through the windows, and you have a lot of reflection off of floors and counters. Sometimes you can put a polarizer on the front, and it just helps reduce some of that glare. And the other one is an ND filter. It's basically like shades for your lens when you're outside and it's really sunny out. Sometimes if you want to maintain your camera settings, you may need to cut down the light that's coming into your camera, and an ND filter is really good for that. So guys, there was one more piece of equipment that I wanted to talk to you about. I don't think it's one of those kind of nice to have, it's a must have. So when you're shooting real estate, your camera is going from your tripod to your gimbal to sometimes attaching to a holster that's hanging off of yourself, and you need a quick release system. I use something called the F38 by Ulanzi, and it just allows your camera to quickly latch to your tripod, and you can lock it. There's a little button to just release. And take, for example, if I have this strap over my shoulder, I can just, quickly attach to the strap and carry my camera around. Also on my gimbal, I have the same system. So I just detach from here, attach to my gimbal, and it makes my workflow a lot smoother and faster. So in terms of shooting video for real estate, I try to keep my ISO at around 250 to 350. And because I'm shooting at 60 frames a second, we're doing the 180 degrees rule, which is a shutter speed of 1/125. And my iris, that's what you're gonna adjust to compensate for the light in the room. So I will adjust my iris. I'll open up to f2, and sometimes I'll go all the way up to f8, f9, just depending on how much light is in the room or how much more light I need to, I guess, bring into my camera. If it's really bright in the room, sometimes I will need to increase my ISO, and I will do that accordingly. But I do try to keep my ISO really low so my footage isn't grainy and I have to deal with it later on in post. And in terms of white balance, I usually just keep my white balance on auto. The Sonys are pretty good at detecting the correct white balance in a room, so I just leave it on auto and it does a really good job. For taking photos, the settings that I use is always ISO 250. It just stays at ISO 250. And then my iris, I'll usually adjust to f8 or f9, and it just stays there as well. And auto white balance as well, but my shutter speed is what I'm going to adjust. So what I do is I take 3 photos normally of the same scene. So my camera sits on a tripod, and then I will take 1 photo which is underexposed, 1 which is perfectly normal exposure, and then 1 which is overexposure. And then later on in post, I will merge that photo, and then it becomes a high dynamic range photo, so I can adjust for all the, kind of the dark and the light areas within the room, and it looks quite uniform. And then how I do that is, well, there's 2 ways of doing it actually. You can have your camera automatically just take 3 photos, 1 underexposed, regular exposed, and overexposed, or you can just do it manually. You can adjust the shutter speed. So that's how you can adjust for your plus or minus compensation, is just adjust your shutter speed and then take the shots. And then something else I should say is I always set a 2-second timer to my shutter release. So whether you're doing it manually or you're having the camera take 3 shots on its own, it's good to set a 2-second timer just in case the camera is shaking. It gives it just a couple seconds to stabilize and make sure that you don't get any blurry shots or shots that aren't going to emerge later on in post because the camera was moving because you were pressing the shutter. So that's pretty much my settings for taking photos. So I wanted to quickly also talk about how I shoot a video, and the most important thing is the gimbal shots and how I capture the room. There's basically, I think, 5 shots that I use. So I will use push in or pull out, that's 1, or I'll set my camera straight and then I will scan over the room, and then I can also do a scan up and down like that. And then one of the other ones, which is nice, if you're in like the corner of the room, you can pan just in one center spot, just pan across the room. That looks really nice as well. And then there's a parallax shot where you are focused on one area of the room and you'll just arc around that focus point, and that gives you a really nice shot as well. So those are the basic gimbal shots that work really well when shooting video. And looking for that perfect shot when you're taking photos is just looking for that nice wide shot where you're really capturing the room for people to see. People want to see the room and really kind of like the space and the openness of each room. So I try to shoot from a corner of the room or one side of the room and capture the full width of the room. And then there are some other shots that I will sometimes take. I'll put on a lens that is not so wide and capture some feature shots. That's always nice to work in. And you can work those into the video as well, where you are focused on maybe some of the furniture or just special features of the room. Take, for example, if you're in the kitchen, you may want to focus on the appliances or the faucets, especially if they're high quality and they look really nice. And then you can always mix those into your video or... Hi guys, so I'm at my computer right now and I'm going to show you how I process some of these files, how I do the video and the photography. But first we're just going to concentrate on the photos, and I have my laptop over here and I'm just going to use it for screen recording, so I'm going to be facing this direction. So I pull up Lightroom and I have my photos in here. So I'm just going to open this up. So I have my photos. The first thing I'm going to do is import all my photos into my library, and once I have them there, I have all my raw files, and the first thing that I do is start to merge them. So I'm just going to give you an example of what I do. So I have the 3 photos, the underexposed, the regular exposed, and the overexposed, and then I can just come in here, merge photos into an HDR. There we go, it's just analyzing it. Merge. And then we have an HDR photo. So what I do after I merge each photo, I go through and then I just rate them. So later on, I can go in and filter just to see all of my rated. And then I'll have just the full list of my HDR merged photos. I open it up and then let's go in here and I'll just show you how I would deal with a photo such as this. So first of all, I would just bump the exposure just a little bit and the contrast, just give it a little bit more of a contrasty look. There we go. And then along the floors, to the right side and along the wall, it's a little bit dark, and up against the stair wall, it's a bit dark as well. So I work with graduated filters, so I would just pull a couple in here, so right here. So I want to lighten that up. I'm just going to add to that same scene another graduated filter, boom, and we're just going to add to that as well with a radial gradient, and I'm just going to boost it up here just along the wall. Let's just bump that exposure a little bit. There we go, and that's looking much better. There we go already. So then I will go down, and if you don't have this selected already, I would do a profile correction for your lens. And usually I just use the auto transform to straighten up the photo. Everything looks pretty good so far. So this one photo, it's pretty easy. Look at that. And that looks better already. You can even just take it a little bit further if you wanted to. Just want to highlight the sofa in the room. And let's just take down some of the highlights because we're trying to get rid of some of that glare as well off of the floor. And then I can actually just add another filter and take down some of the highlights to just reduce some of the glare on the floor. That's going to make it look a little bit better. There we go. I think that's pretty much perfect. Because one of the things that you don't want to do is you don't want to overdo it. You don't want your photos to look fake. And I know some people like that. So if you have a client that likes that really kind of saturated, almost kind of softer look, what I will do sometimes is just boost the saturation a touch. So I'll come down to noise reduction, and I'll just add a little bit of luminance to the look of the photo, and it just kind of softens it up a little bit and gives it that that dreamy look. And you can even just take the sharpening down just a touch and bring up the luminance. So I just want to show you a before and after. So this is what the photo looked like right as we brought it in and after our adjustments. Just a little bit cleaner. That's mostly what I do in Lightroom, just to finish off the photos, make them look a little bit better, a little bit more polished. And, clients usually like that. It's a little bit more time, but I think it's worth it. So in terms of video, I actually prefer to use Final Cut. I find that Final Cut is really easy to work with. It's fast, it's nice and light. And if you are working on a Mac, it is the, ideal software that, it just works really well with the Mac because it's made by Apple. I usually start a project off by creating a folder, and it's usually dated, and I have a bit of a format. So I have my assets, which could be the starting bumper or the ending bumper, some of the clients' logos, and I always just create an export folder. I have a folder for music, and I have a folder for my video, and sometimes I'll add a B-roll folder as well. And then I usually have a thumb folder for like a thumbnail. One of the things that you will need is an account with one of the stock music companies. There's a lot of them out there, some really good ones. I use a company called Audio. I love them because you can create a lifetime membership with them. It's a bit expensive, but once you have it, then you're not paying for music, and you're not paying a monthly fee. It's just, you have it. You can just come here and search for the music that is going to be appropriate for your client and download it, use it, and you're whitelisted for this music, which is essential because you don't want to be just downloading music from somewhere and have problems with licensing. And if you're passing it on to a client, you don't want them to have issues. That's just going to look bad for your business. And so that's what I do. I have an account with Audio. So one of the reasons why I just put everything all in one folder is because later on you're going to likely store these files for a client, and you're going to put it on a hard drive somewhere just in case they need it in the future. And you want everything to be in one package. You don't want it to be all over your computer. It's important that you just store everything all in one package that you can, offload somewhere else. And if you need to access it, you can just bring it back into your computer. So that's essential just to keep yourself organized. Also, when you're creating your library, one of the things that I do is I change all my storage locations to go right into that folder. So my cache goes into that folder, all my backups, all my media, and everything else goes right in there. And once again, it's just easy to keep everything all in one stored folder. So one of the first things I do is bring in the client's intro, which I have here. And if I play it, it'll just start. And then I usually throw in my music underneath. And then you can see all the beats, and I'll try to make my cuts to the beat. So as we move along, it's nicely coordinated with music. There we go. So now we're in the living room. I'm looking for just a different angle. So here's one here, just kind of zooming in on the sofa. So I'll just find a nice smooth part where I was steady with the gimbal, and it's nicely framed. So right there, that's a good start. And I'll hit my in point and just see where I want to finish. There we go, out, and then E to add it to the timeline. And what we want to do is we want to slow it down by, let's say, 50%. There we go. We slow it down by 50%, and we want to cut to the beat. There we go. So we just bring that back, and that's how we do it. We just cut to the different scenes throughout the room. And then when we're finished, we're just going to add the end bumper, and there's maybe just a few other things I'm going to add, like titles and some contact information as we move through the video. But that's pretty much it. I just export it when I'm done, and I use a service called Vimeo, which is great to deliver videos to a client. You can send it to them so they can embed. You can send them a link or however they want it. Okay, guys, I hope you like my general rundown of how I deal with photos and creating a video project. It's obviously not going into all the technical aspects because that would be a really, really long video, and we're not here for that today. It's just more of a, kind of a workflow and what I do to create a real estate video and photos. If you do have more technical questions, hit me up in the comments below. I will try to answer them, and that's it.